More hydraulic actuators installed at the test rig in Massey's. Rest in peace Ship 32 at Sanchez. New external wall section spotted inside Star Factory at the build site. And the flame trench is finally ready for a massive concrete pour at the launch site. Welcome to episode 76 of Starbase Flyover Update. We'll cover all the Starbase development from the 8th of March through the 14th. We're back high above Starbase after last week's weather-induced low-altitude flight. My name is BJ. Let's buckle up, enjoy the latest flight from 10,500 feet. We'll start our tour over at Massey's test facility. Before we dive in, let's have a quick look at the labeled map by Proky to get you oriented. We'll start at the back of the site, where a new strip of concrete is being prepared. The high-pressure tanks from Pad A's water deluge system have been relocated here, possibly just for storage. Nearby at the flame trench, crews have set up scaffolding for possible maintenance work. Looking closer at the concrete floor on the plume exit side, you can see physical damage to the surface. Over at the liquid oxygen tanks, concrete is being broken out for what will eventually be new foundations for an additional tank to further expand the lock storage at the facility. Moving to the workshop building, the two hydraulic thrust rings for the inner engines can be seen. These would be lifted into the structural testing stand to the left on March 17th. At the structural test stand, 5 additional mounting points for thrust rams have been added to the second level. Near the nose cone jail, we get a better look at the new ring structures seen last week. Its purpose is still unclear. Let us know in the comments what you think it might be for. Moving to the new booster cryo stand, additional top plates have been installed, as well as coatings on the welds and metal plugs over the holes used to pump concrete into the structure. We expect to see more parts arrive soon for the next level, which will include the top deck and booster clamps as seen on the older stand in the background. A new theory behind the new cryo stand is that the Block 2 booster may have its quick disconnect panel in a new location, meaning that the booster will be rotated and thus the engine mounts will be in a different position relative to the current test stand. The two SPMTs for Booster 16 patiently wait at the front of the site for SpaceX to determine where to position it, as the work stands in Mega Bay 1 are occupied and Massey's is the only place the cryo stand can be bolted down. A transport delay has been scheduled for March 19th or 20th that could see the return of the booster to the build site. Rounding out the changes at the site, Test Tank 16 awaited rollback at the front of the site, which occurred on March 15th, and now resides near the rocket garden at the Sanchez site. Finally, let's check in at the Rio West housing development. At the apartment buildings, roofing is progressing on the remaining units. The townhouse units to the side are advancing with the same staggered process. The first units now have a concrete slab poured, showing the final footprint of each unit. Moving to the housing at the bottom of the site, framing is continuing, with the first lot finished and the second following closely behind. And now, on to Sanchez. Thanks to Proky for supplying this labeled map. Each week we notice fewer pipes as the construction of Pad B at the launch site continues. Starting at the new OLM area, not much has changed visually from last week, with work inside the structure continuing as expected. However, we noticed something quite unusual with the recently installed water manifold. It appears to have been placed backwards. If you look closely, this section is misaligned with the other part of the deflector. We'll monitor how they address this issue as elbow installation began on March 17th. Moving to the flame bucket area, the alignment beams that were fitted to align the pipes together have been removed, signaling that the pipes are at least partially welded. Looking closer, you can see colored patterns have started being painted, likely to mark hole drilling of the pipes. Like the Massey's flame bucket, this one will have holes to spray water, absorbing heat and sound generated by the engines. Close to Highway 4, new stainless steel hold-down arms for the booster transport stand have appeared beside it. These are much more resilient to the environment, lasting longer without issues. They also have a different shape where the clamps attach, with a 4-bolt pattern similar to the arms in the Massey's test structure. These may be built to accept the redesigned Block 2 variant of hold-down clamps. To the left, more jigs for Star Factory have been constructed. We lost count of how many were built already, but most likely they are far from being finished. At the Ship QD arm area, there is no progress with it. However, parts of the two chopstick stabilizers made an appearance here. These are some of the final missing parts to get the new chopsticks ready for lifting and catching vehicles. On March 13th, a strange pipe was seen removed from Mega Bay 1. We were able to get an eye on it, now taking space in the scrapyard. It appears that SpaceX is changing some tooling ahead of Block 2 booster stacking, expecting that Booster 18 may be the first one. Nearby, you can see that the remaining Ship 32 sections have been scrapped. Rest in peace to another ship that never had the chance to fly. The Ship 26 nose cone remains. Like the hot stage ring testing articles, they haven't been completely scrapped. At the side of Remedios Avenue, the ship cryostand returned after Ship 35 completed its cryogenic proof testing campaign. Finally, the new mural at the parking garage was completed, with Block 2 ships being the only noticeable change from the old one. With all of that, let's move to the build site. Let's go over this week's changes around the build site, where SpaceX is beginning to demolish a building. Starting with Mega Bay 2, Ship 37 had its first piece, the nose cone and payload barrel, rolled out into the bay on March 15th. Ship 37 will fly on Flight 11, is the next Block 2 ship. Thanks to Lab Padre's Rover 1 cam for capturing these angles and Vix on X for compiling the time lapses. Meanwhile, Ship 35 returned to Mega Bay 2 on March 13th after completing 3 cryotests on the 11th and 12th. It was then hooked up to the lifting jig and moved to the work stand inside the bay as workers ready the ship for Flight 9. It is still unclear if it will be paired with Booster 16 or if Booster 14 will become the first one to launch for a second time. Now moving on to Mega Bay 1, there have been no noticeable changes from above, but it was observed earlier in the week that Booster 17 has been moved to the center workstation. As mentioned at Massey's, this has caused Booster 16 to have an extended stay at the test site. Little has changed with the High Bay and Stargate buildings, though a pair of excavators from a demolition contractor can be seen parked nearby, as we speculate they might soon be torn down for the construction of Gigabay. As mentioned in the previous episode, this triangular part of Star Factory is due to come down as well. New wall framing has been spotted inside, closing off this now restricted area. Now moving right to the new 3-story apartment building under construction, pile drilling for the building's foundations have begun. Here is an artist drawing how the building will look once completed. Meanwhile, the first townhouse block is nearing completion of its outer structure. The second block has its concrete pad poured, awaiting walls to begin. The pool complex is nearing completion, where palm trees have been planted to create a relaxing environment for workers to hang out on off days. Before moving on, this flyover is made possible by our paid supporters on Patreon. Consider supporting us to gain access to high-quality photo galleries and roundtable discussion the same day we fly. Here's a new labeled map of the launch site. Let's jump right in with all the newest developments. The much-anticipated build-out of the flame trench rebar cage is nearing completion at Pad B. Along the length of the trench on each side are 2 parallel embeds that will be the main attachment point for the steel panels mentioned last week that will form the main structural walls of the trench. In the middle of the trench there are 5 rows of additional embeds that will be for the support frames for the flame bucket. Toward each end, there is plywood being laid where the flat bottom of the trench transitions to the ramps that exit the trench. It appears this will be used as a top form to shape the surface of these ramps. In the corners on the tower side of the trench, circular sump pits are in place to create a place for collected water from rain and deluge discharge to be pumped out for proper disposal and treatment. Sooner than some anticipated, the flame trench slab would be ready to pour just 2 days later, with the first concrete truck arriving just before 9 p.m. on Sunday, March 16th, as captured here by Starship Gazer on X. The pour would continue into Monday, with the last trucks arriving just before midnight. The last concrete pump would finish with these remaining trucks and fold up around 1:30 a.m. on the 18th. The duration of the pour was approximately 27.5 hours, consisting of approximately 300 trucks placed with 6 pump trucks. Thanks to Almo for clipping this time-lapse from Lab Padre's lab cam. In this top view, the gantry structure is largely assembled. The ground level had an additional layer of concrete poured for the final floor. On the first elevated level, corrugated panels have been installed and will have concrete poured to finish that floor. Additional panels on the corner of the lot indicate the second level will also have a floor installed. On the inside, 6 high-pressure gas cylinders have been installed. The tower at Pad B has been quiet as of late. Ramps have been installed on the cable chain guide arms. These will prevent the chain from swinging beyond the guides while the chopsticks are lowered. The chopsticks are still waiting on the installation of their stabilization arms, however scaffolding has been added to the left arm for continued work. This is around the center lift actuator that extends the landing rail to the elevated position prior to catching a vehicle. The extension of the launch mount commodities trench is now progressing to meet with the segment completed from the fluids bunker. The expansion loop area for this segment already has plumbing installed. There appears to be one more expansion loop near the tower that is prepared but has not been excavated yet. Moving to the other side of the tower, another much larger trench is in the process of being excavated. This one will be filled with the much larger pipes that supply water from the deluge tank farm to the various water systems within and below the launch mount. Next to the smaller bank of water tanks, the first two pipe assemblies can be seen with additional pipes, including tank side manifolds, arriving in a day since. Moving back to the fluids bunker, a hole has been cut into the eastern wall to allow passage of the main cryo pipes inside. The two smaller holes cast in the walls during original construction should be for the pipes going to the tower. Another hole is expected to be cut in the western face for the launch mount pipes to pass. Near the pile of excavated soil, a stack of steel beams can be seen. These are expected to be for spanning the openings of the trench expansion loops to support sections of the trench cover. On both sides of the existing comms bunker, further installation of electrical conduits continues. With the paths these are taking, it appears that the new bunker under construction will be in addition to this older building, not a replacement. At the new bunker, framework is being installed between the piers and panels are also staged to be attached between them. Near the deluge farm nitrogen tanks, new foundations have been installed. It appears 4 pieces of hardware will be placed here, most likely some form of heat exchanger to convert the liquid nitrogen into gas to pressurize and expel the water from the storage tanks during operation. Across the commodity trench, the SpaceX LR11000 is in the process of disassembly. It's still unclear what is being done as the boom sections are being transported to the Highway 4 storage lot. It appears that extensive maintenance is once again being performed, though there is speculation of reconfiguration or transport to the build site for high bay removal. At the tank farm end of the commodities trench, pipe assemblies have now been extended and routed out of the trench. We can see that the 3 larger pairs now split, with the top pipe exiting to the east and the lower pipes turning and exiting toward the south. Within the pump farm, pipe assemblies are gathering ahead of installation. 2 of interest are these with a staggered cut on the pipe ends. These will be used to direct the exhausted nitrogen from the large LOX subcoolers into the chimney with the fans installed. Working around the area, pipe stands with some pipes already installed now follow the perimeter along the blast wall and along the LOX tanks. Scaffolding has been installed around 3 of the 4 methane hippos, and the flanges are being prepared while the 4th one arrived with the manifold already installed. The LOX pump pad is making good progress. The final 5 base frames are staged, with 2 already installed for the remaining pumps. Near the back, 3 of the top frames that have the mounting surface for the sump sleeve are staged. Over the weekend, all of these items would be installed, with only the concrete foot needed to be poured for further outfitting. At the front of this area, a 3rd LOX hippo arrived and it was installed. The final one would be installed on the 17th. Nearby, the 3 vaporizers that were damaged during Flight 8 have been removed and transported away for repair or replacement. Conduit installation for the pump bunker is progressing, with runs going to the vaults in both directions. Along the front of the tank farm, the protection wall along the highway is now being extended. Footings appear to be extending to the end of the bunker foundation, with it likely continuing to the D2 gate. At the front edge of the former vertical tank farm, the trench used for liquid nitrogen pipework has been emptied of pipe and the concrete wall is being demolished. Checking in on the Pad A launch mount, the lack of painting prior to Flight 8 appears to have been okay. The normal areas of the mount have a new layer of char. We'll have to keep an eye open for if they deem it necessary to paint for Flight 9 or not. All the normal post-flight activities are seen, alignment pins have been reinstalled, and scaffolding has been placed on the mount and dance floor to service all the systems. Behind Tower 1, a trench has been cut in the concrete for the installation of some new pipes and conduits between the tower and the deluge farm. Further down the deluge tank farm, one of the stacks of unused high-pressure nitrogen tanks have been removed and taken to Massey's for storage. It's unclear what this is for, but the timing might suggest some new tanks may arrive for upgraded systems in the tower. That's it for episode 76 of Starbase Flyover Update. Thank you for choosing to fly with RGB aerial photography. I hope you enjoyed the flight. If you liked what you saw today, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe so you get notified of future videos and weekly live streams. I've been BJ, and I hope to see you next time from 10,500 feet.